Hi. Um, my dad's Huntington's has shaped my identity, and I want to talk about it. Um, First off, my glasses have a horrible glare, so I've set my laptop screen to be really dim so that because then you can see the glare and it's kind of annoying. So it's down like this, so I can't really tell how it looks because it's super dim. So I hope this video is not too dark, or else that's going to be a nightmare to edit. Um, I don't know how to structure this, so I guess I'll just go into it as best I can. My dad had Huntington's, which is a very scary disorder to have, and it's a genetic disorder, so I might have it. To help make this easier, I should look up what it is so I can explain it. Huntington's disease causes nerve cells in the brain to decay over time. The disease affects a person's movements, thinking, and mental health. It's rare, but it's genetic. Since my dad had it, I have a 50-50 chance of also having it. My dad's mom had it too, and yeah, sometimes it can skip a generation, sometimes it can skip two or three even. My dad had a sister, and his sister had two kids, and as far as we know, those two kids don't have it. And she also doesn't have it, as far as we know. I want to ask them, but that seems kind of weird and invasive because I don't know them that well, but I just want to know. But there's a chance that I'll have it because it was my dad. Or more likely chance, probably. I don't know how it works actually, like the numbers. Symptoms can develop at any time, usually though between the 30s and the 40s. But if it develops before 20, then it's called juvenile Huntington's, and the symptoms are very different because there's less brain to munch on. It usually causes movement issues, lots of spasming. I always noticed with my dad in the arms, he would always try to be yanking his arms backwards. He couldn't really, but he kept trying to. And he had a hard time walking. My mom said when he was able to walk, when I was too young to remember, people assumed him to be drunk because of how he walked. He would always sway and he'd need to find a wall. And when he talked, his speech would be very slurred because talking involves coordinating your lungs, your vocal cords, your tongue, your lips all together. And that was very hard for him because all of those things are independent processes that would come together. And it causes issues with planning and reasoning. So he would have a very hard time with, there's something I have to do at 11, which means I should leave at 10 to get there. Or even, there's something I have to do at 11, so I need to leave the house at all. Or there's something I have to do at 11, so there's a thing I need to be there for at 11. That just was very hard for him. Huntington's comes in all ways. I always knew that. It comes in different presentations. So when I talk about my experience with a parent with Huntington's, that is not everybody else's experience. I know. And I think I'm rather lucky in the way that it presented in my dad, as it has seemingly, I don't want to say it positively impacted me, but I think that the strain of it pushed me to become a better person than I would have been without it. And I know that's not everyone's experience. I first noticed that my dad was different when I was about 4 years old. And I noticed this in the way that he would have a hard time walking around, and he was always holding on to things, like I said. And I didn't it wasn't a bad thing to me. I had no reason to judge it, um, because he was my dad and I loved him. But it was just, that's different. Other people don't really do that. Um, and when he would talk, it would be sort of disorganized. Stories weren't linear when he would tell them to me. He would like start telling me the story, and then he'd tell me the end, and then he'd keep telling me the story, and then he'd tell me what he did after, and then he'd start talking about something else, and then we're back to the story, and it was all over the place. And that was very confusing. But he was my dad, and I loved him, so that didn't really matter to me. He didn't live with me and my mom. They sort of separated, not because they wanted to, but my mom always said it was just because she could either look after me or him because I was a baby, and he couldn't look after me. So she chose to look after me instead of my dad. And that's why they had to separate. But it's not like they disliked each other in any way. It's just she couldn't look after him too. Um, so I would have visits with him and my aunt, who's my dad's sister, like I said, and my cousins. Um, and my mom wasn't there for them, so she didn't really know exactly how they would go down. But my mom would always like very, very firmly tell me that your dad is different and that's okay. And he still loves you, even though he doesn't tell you. And even though he doesn't really remember what's going on in your life and he doesn't ask you questions about things when you tell him things, he still loves you. And I was always just like, yeah, duh, I know, because he expressed it how he could. He couldn't speak much, and forming thoughts to words, to telling me the words, was a lot of. He was very big on gifting things. When I was like 3 or 4 years old, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, I think it was part 2, came out, and he gave it to me on DVD. I was like 3 or 4 years old. But he saw it in theaters and he really liked it. So he gave it to me. He gave me the DVD. He bought it and he gave it to me because that was how he wanted to bond with me, because he liked it. So he thought that I would too. And I was definitely too young to be watching it, but I watched it anyway. And then the next time I saw him, I sat there and talked at him about it. And I could see how happy that made him, even though he didn't have much to say back to me, because he liked it, and he thinks that I like it, and now we have something in common. And that was a lot of our giving things, and the mental execution to give something is very. He had to have an experience. Remember that experience. Think of me during that experience in some way. And then later on, see something that reminds him of that, reminds him of me in that. Get it, take it home, remember to give it to me. Wow. I occupied such a big part of his mind. I think that's the beauty of it. His disease progressed in the way that he would forget to eat for days. I wasn't allowed to be unsupervised with him because he just would forget to eat, or forget to go to the bathroom, or to clean, or to. But he would forget to eat, but he wouldn't forget me. And I was always in his mind, and I was there for every thought in his mind. And I think that there is something beautiful about that. And I recognized that, because I recognized that he would wander off from the dinner table, and he would just sort of blank randomly, and yet he could always find me. and he always had a hug for me, and he would always give me a kiss, and that wasn't something he would forget. And eventually he sort of stopped being able to give me things as I got older. But he could look at me so intently, and I knew that in his mind that was what he was thinking, and he's trying to like beam it into mine. We're trying to telepathically communicate with each other, and it worked. It worked very well. And when he would talk to me, he'd talk sort of weirdly and not linearly, but that was okay because I had no reason to judge him. And he would get mad, but he never got angry. His anger projected as determination. He was determined to make sure that I knew he loved me. And he was determined to make sure that I was happy and loved. And boy, oh boy, were those needs very much met. And I remember in school, my teachers were made aware that my dad has Huntington's. And when I talk about him, I may talk about him differently than how other parents would, or other kids would talk about their parents. And I remember teachers would sort of try to probe me a little bit, and they would be like, "Do you think your dad is weird?" And I was sort of like, "I mean, I guess." And they were like, "But your dad loves you." And I'm like, "Duh, absolutely." And I didn't understand for the longest time why other people couldn't see how he expressed himself. Because I was such a small child when he developed it, and all of my life he had it. I grew up with him having it, so my mind was sort of shaped around it. I learned how to express my emotions so that my mom could understand, so that my teachers could understand, but also so that my dad could understand. And when I tell stories, the way you tell a story to a 3-year-old is different from how you tell it to your parents, and therefore different to my dad. And I wanted to communicate with him. The idea that I wouldn't wasn't a thought in my head. The only thing was, how do I do that? The usual way I do it, how I talk to my mom, doesn't work. So I need to find something else. And I always did. And he always did for me. And I think because of that, failure to communicate was never an option for me. It is never an option for me. When I was in grade school, I was also what's the word? Mental development. I was slightly developmentally delayed as a child, but I was always put with the other developmentally delayed children, not in the way that like we were grouped together, but in the way that I was expected to help them, which to everyone else, whenever I tell them, seems like a burden, and they interpret it as me complaining. But I don't see it in that way, because I see that other people were able to see the resilience I had for others communicate differently. And I have to know that because of my dad. And I'm shaped around that. So when I see kids who don't speak a word of English, who cannot mentally picture anything, who have like they're completely defeated and they are scared of even touching a subject. And I don't get frustrated by it. I'm just, we're, I'm here, you're here. I'm not going to try to make you come to me. I'm more able to move than you are. I'll come to you. I don't even want to meet in the middle. I'll come to you. Failure to communicate isn't an option. Everyone has some way of communicating. Um, I couldn't tell him about my school that much because he didn't understand. So I'd just sit next to him and color. And he understood that I wanted to sit next to him. And similarly, other kids who are also developmentally disabled couldn't really understand math. And so I didn't tell them about math. I told them about other things and also helped them with their math in a way that changes how it's looked at for them. And I could meet them where they were. And I think that's such a beautiful gift that I have because of him. Even in high school, I I I have this clawing need in me to work with kids who are so obviously struggling at tasks, because the way that teachers help them try to understand doesn't make sense, and of course it doesn't make sense to them. That's the whole problem. If just explaining it like that made sense to them, they would be just fine. They would go about their lives. But I could see exactly what's tripping them up and exactly what's confusing them and exactly why the train doesn't go from A to B. I can tell that because for us, it's A to B. For us, we just have a thought and then we say it out loud. But for someone whose brain is wired so differently, that's not A to B. Point A is having the thought. No, point A is acknowledging that you are experiencing a thing in the first place. And then point B is an emotion that you feel because of it. It's the reaction. Point C is the neurons firing for a thought. Point D is realizing that you have that thought. And then so on and so forth. And it's not like that. All of that needs to be broken down. And I see that in people. And I don't believe when people say that there is a person who can't communicate. I don't believe that. I believe that no one can understand how they're trying to communicate. Or people who have been incredibly discouraged from trying to. But I believe everyone can. They just do it differently. And not all communication is verbal. Some of it is facial expressions or gift giving or sitting next to each other or just doing things. Hi. Um, my rat's cage got delivered, and then I had to set it up because it's so big. We had to take the whole thing apart just to get it through the hallways and into my room. And that made me really tired. So I stopped filming 7 hours ago. Ugh, my throat feels disgusting. Um, and sorry about the glare. The thing is, if I turn my laptop brightness down, then it sorta, yeah. So I think my glasses is, there we are, is less annoying than that. Um, my voice is very hoarse. I don't know what's going on with that. Whatever. Um, I completely forgot what I was saying, but I don't want to try to retrace my thoughts by watching my own older video from 7 hours ago. So I'm just going to pick up where I feel I should. Everyone can communicate in some way, and it's not a matter of can they, it's do other people care enough, do other people have it in them to look for what it is, and have they become discouraged from trying to communicate, because I feel that is a very big thing when it comes to neurological things such as Huntington's or profound autism. I see so many people talk about the anger that comes from it. And same with dementia or Parkinson's. People talk about this anger as if it's like just a side effect symptom, but it's really not. I I look at it in the same way that it's perfectly reasonable why children they get so overwhelmed, they throw tantrums. It's really overwhelming to just feel like you're locked into yourself, where you're clawing at the outside world to try to communicate and share your thoughts and ideas, but it feels like no one's listening and no one's understanding, and that is very overwhelming. And it creates either this deep anger and frustration, or they just get locked in and they don't even try to communicate anymore because they know it's going to be a letdown, or they think they know it's going to be a letdown. But my dad wasn't an angry man. Even in the weeks before he died, he never said a word because he couldn't. But even then, he was never mad. At first, I sort of thought it was because they just gave him a lot of medication when it would be time to visit me to sort of try to calm him down. But he lived in a hospice. And I remember the dining hall. I would meet him in there sometimes. And there were more seats than there were people, so that every person can sit exactly where they wanted to. And the table with my dad was always full. There would be an excess amount of chairs. In an area of a table where you'd maybe want to sit 3 people, there'd be 5. Everyone wanted to sit next to him, and everyone wanted to talk to him. And that to me means he was always happy. And he was always just a great guy that everyone wanted to be around. And I think that is because he knew that he could communicate. Maybe not in the same way of everyone else, but he found a way to. He found a way outside of his brain to get into other people's, I guess. My medication wore off. I don't know if this is making sense. It makes sense to me, and that this is for me. He could do that, and because of that, he stayed as he always was, which was happy. He loved people. He loved bringing people together. The more people that were together, the happier he became. The happier he became, the more his mind was able to open itself up to communication. And with that, it spurred itself together. And he was always so happy. And that was why I wanted to interact with him so badly. Not just because he's my dad. My grandma's my grandma, and I hate her. I can't say it too loudly or else she'll hear, but I hate her, and I live with her. But it wasn't just that he was my dad, it was because he was a really fucking cool dad. He couldn't help me on the swings. He certainly couldn't help me with my homework, and I even knew that. But he was so lovely and loving, and I never saw him in his limitations. I never thought about he had all these passions that I was born too late to experience with him. I always saw him with his passions in the ways that he chose to express it. I knew he loved photography, because he would give me his phone on the camera app and tell me to point it out the window and just take pictures of everything I saw. And he would keep those photos. And that's how I knew he liked photos, because he's introducing me to photos. In the same way with the Spider-Man DVD, I think I mentioned. And same with computers. I never really saw him sit down at the computer, but he really wanted me to sit down at the computer. And so I knew he liked computers. So I got really into computers because of him. And I never saw that he couldn't do that. I mean, I was aware of it, but I didn't think of it as that. I sort of processed it as him giving that to me, in a very weird sort of way, I guess. And so I guess within that, when I look at other people and I see their limitations, I think it may be easier for me than to others to see past them. I don't think I'm profound for saying that, not at all, but I do think it comes more naturally to me than a lot of others who claim that to be the case, simply because I I don't see the gaps, I see the shape that is made up by the gaps, I guess, is the best way to say it. And there is a dad-shaped gap that is all around the world, and in everyone that I meet in some way. And I just like to bring it out of people. I like to bring it out of people who are more dad-shaped gap, I guess. People who also struggle to communicate or communicate differently, but they like to be around people, and they know exactly what they want to say. It's just they can't quite say it. They just need that little piece. And I love to be the one to give them that little piece, because that means that with that, they might be able to go on and take that little piece and give it to other people. Because I was sort of the ground zero for my dad. Before he went into hospice, like I was saying, he still lived on his own. And he didn't really interact with anyone aside from me and his sister's husband and whatnot. So that means that a lot of the socializing skills that he was able to use to interact with the other people in the hospice, he learned off of me. He tested it on me and he trialed it on me, and it worked, and he was able to develop it from there. And I want to see that more. I want to see people. I want to make a friend because that friend doesn't have any other friends, and then I want that friend to tell me, actually, I have so many other friends that I'd rather hang out with, and you were awesome, but there's just so many other people. That would be very nice. Because, yeah, you go. You go off in the world. You go places, you can do that. And I need everyone to see that you can do that. And I don't even care. You go do that. That's so fucking awesome. And I guess the other way that Huntington's shaped my identity in a different way, the literal of I was saying in the beginning, the genetic aspect of it. I was sort of introduced to the idea that I could have Huntington's when I was about 9 years old, back when my dad was still alive and walking. And, or well, he wasn't walking, actually, he was in a wheelchair. Sorry, Dad. I'm trying my best. It's almost 9 p.m. I was introduced to that idea while he was still around. And I think because of that, and because I saw Huntington's in the light of a man who was so happy and was so kind and loving and was able to bring so many people together, and who was loved by everyone around him and was able to love them. The idea of me having Huntington's was never really a scary thing. Um, because it was, what's the worst that'll happen? I end up like my dad? I would love that. Maybe not the Huntingtons, but you know what I mean? Where it's, in my mind, I don't have a scary idea. It's a scary disease, um, but living with it may not be horrible, so long as I'm perfect like my dad. But because of this idea that was put in my head when I was 9, I can't get genetically tested until I'm 19, which is in 8 months. Um, yeah, so I don't know if I have Huntington's. And when I was 15 and I switched to our new doctor, I was telling him that, like, oh yeah, my dad has Huntington's and I'd like to get tested for it. And he was like, well, are you sure you want to? And he like tried to hold my hand. Like, are you sure you want to? It's like, what do you mean? Yeah, I'm sure I want to. Um, there's this sort of assumption with it, I guess, that if you want to get tested for it, that sort of means that you're, I guess, assuming the worst, or you need it to be a no. Either you want to justify killing yourself early, or you will kill yourself early if it's not a no. Is the but for me it isn't that. Um Not really. I mean, it would be very much nice if it's a no. I would really hope it to be a no. Everything else is wrong with me. I really hope I don't have Huntington's. Um, but at the same time, I don't have the good luck. I don't have the greatest luck at all. And I, even if it is a yes, that doesn't mean I will go like my dad at 45 at stage 3. Um, I could be 70 before it does anything. You know, that's what happens for some people with it. Um, you know, I can test positive and then never have it flip on in my, you know, and that would be nice. Just because the test says yes doesn't mean my life will play out in that way. But it's just, I need to assess everything going into being alive. And it's a very strange way to say it, but like, being a child is the training module. Um, when you're a child, it's very hard to permanently fuck up. You know what I mean? Um, Even if you don't go to school for a week and you don't explain it to anyone, they're not gonna kick you out. It's school, whatever. It's a padded area that it's a training module. And the training module was nice, but before I play the game, I'd like to know all of the parameters of this game. Wow, that was an opinion. Um, but I would, in the sense that if I do have Huntington's, that I don't want to kill myself. I really don't want to. Um, I'm not a suicidal person, even though I come across that way. Because I do come across as a suicidal person, even though I'm not. Um, but simply, I want to know, because then I know that I need to work to prevent it. Because there are things that can make it more manageable. You can have life plans and goals put in place. If I do have it, I would like to think about what'll happen if it happens. And I'd like to talk to my loved ones about it. And I'd like to make a plan. Because if I have it, one day I'll be like my dad. And I will sit there in my wheelchair and everyone loves me, but I can't say a single word. And I don't really want the love to be a pass for things that I don't want. If that makes any sense. And so because of that, I spend time thinking about and planning how I would like my assets to be handled, how I would like things like that to be if I have it. So then I can assure myself that those who love me will take care of me in the way that I want to be taken care of, whether or not I can express that anymore. But at the same time, I don't like planning for my own demise. It's a thing that I have to stop myself from a lot with OCD, where I spend hours planning a suicide that I don't even want to commit. It's really stupid to say out loud, but I will spend hours thinking of a place and a time and a date and the significance of them and the way and music and emotions and words and what should I do beforehand, where should my possessions go. And I don't even want to be thinking about it. I'll spend the whole time trying desperately to think of something else. But to me, this isn't that. I may have Huntington's. And that's okay. Just because I have it, that doesn't mean my life is over. But similarly, I don't want to spend forever thinking about it. I would just like to get it tested. And then, if it's a yes, I'll make the plan and move on with my life. And if it's a no, then I won't make the plan and I'll move on with my life. Because of the significance of my dad having Huntington's, I have found myself in life caring a lot about Huntington's, but about other sorts of genetic conditions, and I've formed so many opinions with my reference point being like I mean this in the nicest way possible to my dad, but I think he was so fucking selfish bringing a child into the world, knowing that there was a possibility that he could leave before I was even properly developed. I love him, but that was a selfish as fuck decision. Like, holy moly. And this is a very firm and strong opinion that I have that I will keep for the rest of my life, I think. And I am a very selfish and emotional person. I will give myself that. I find myself jealous of other people, I guess. Duh, everyone does. I get really annoyed when I hear someone cry about their 70-year-old grandpa who has dementia. Because fuck you. He lived to 70. He's fucking old. He should be in the ground right now. Fuck you. What do you mean, oh no, he's only been alive for 70 years? How do you think I feel? How do you think those who have lost people to Huntington's feel? Fuck you. And that's so mean to say, and I know that, but I can't stop thinking it because it's unfair. It's not right. How come his life had to end so early? And so many people talk about dementia and Alzheimer's, and we're finding a proof or a cure for fucking, I don't even know. What's, not dementia, not Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. Oh, we're finding a cure for Parkinson's or whatever. I mean, that's cool. That's great. It's like cancer research. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go for it. I'm so here for it. But at the same time, I just can't help myself thinking about why not the people who are younger, who could maybe do more for society and for everyone in general. And I guess that's a very selfish thought, but I feel like my dad was more important when he was 35 and he crashed his car because he lost control of his arms than your papa who hasn't worked in 35 years and still doesn't think black people have rights. Sorry. Also, the other thing as well, I guess, is because of how I think, even if I do have Huntington's, and even if it does come out that, like, I'll probably be shot by 35. Shot. No, shot as in, like, gone. Shit. By 35, like my dad. 35 is so far away. The rain's back. 35 is so far away, though. Like, I'm 18. Me being 12 was a different lifetime. Holy shit, dude. I was crazy when I was 12. I was crazy when I was 16. Oh my god, I should make a whole video talking about when I was 16. That was a rough time. But, like, that was a lifetime ago for me. By 35, I can do so much. Until then, I can live a whole life. I just need to know that the clock says 35 is midnight. Or at least 10 p.m. You know? I just need to be aware of that, because my worst fear is 35 is midnight, but I don't know that. And I had plans for my 40th birthday. I wanted to do this thing, and I won't be able to do those plans because I'm sick now. I don't want to party. I don't want to do drugs. I do actually. I take that back. But I don't want sex. I thought about it a lot. I don't want it. I don't really want to get married. I certainly don't want a kid. I just want to live a fulfilling life. I want to feel like I have touched as many I don't want to have sex. I just want to touch people. I want to make an impact, I guess, on people and on the world around me, and I would just like to know how much time I have to do that. Is it go big or go home? And also, like, if I am gonna die at 45 like my dad, I think it's okay for me to be a bit reckless. It's like, I think about this a lot when I'm at my gynecologist. um, and he's talking about my endometriosis and me having a hysterectomy. And he's like, when you get older, you may not want kids, and or you may want kids, and so we shouldn't do a hysterectomy because what if you want kids? And I'm like, if I get old enough to have enough new life experiences to make me want kids, Jesus Christ, wow, that would be. But also, I need to live that long to get there. So, do the hysterectomy so I can live long enough to regret the hysterectomy. Or else I'm gonna kill myself. I don't say that out loud, but it's sort of just, if I'm not gonna live to 50 anyway, why should I control myself from making decisions that I'll regret when I'm 50? I don't control myself anyway. My mom's out of the bathroom so I can talk again. I think this is what's making my throat hurt. I'm gonna put it down. I lost my train of thought again. But basically my point is, I think I'm more responsible than everyone else, and I think I'm better than everyone else. And fuck you, my dad was more important than your grandpa or whatever. That's not true. And everything's wrong with me. And also, not everything may be wrong with me. But if that's the case, I'd just like to know. And I guess my closing thoughts are, my identity and how I interact with the world was shaped by developmental psychology, wherein the way a child learns to interact with the world around them is by their parents, and or whoever's raising them, the people around them. And because of my dad's Huntington's, my communication to the world is shaped around that. And so I am forever shaped by my dad's disease. And I cannot be separated from it because there is no separation. I am it and it is me. We are one and the same. And I don't think that's bad. I think that there's a lot of grief and there's a lot of very big emotions that I have experienced that not everyone needs to experience. It's quite a traumatic life in regards to it, and all of the very large emotions I had at such early ages. But I also think that I can make good use of it. And it wasn't all for nothing. And I think kids are more adaptive than parents and teachers and everyone else gives them credit for, because I never saw my dad as a burden or an issue for communication until that idea was brought up to me. And then I was just sort of weirded out by that idea. If failure to communicate wasn't an option, I would just, that didn't work, we'll find something else. And I think this is an idea that more people should have. And I admit it is me. And life goes on, I guess. I may have Huntington's, who even knows? We'll figure it out when we get there. Huntington's is terrifying, but life goes on, and I will go on, and so will all of the little dad-shaped pieces in the world that I like to find and dig out of people and places and things and everything else. I guess that's the point of this. I'm gonna shut up now. This is too long. Goodbye.